email. I need to do. I'm having you do course survey.
Oh, I love this.
I'm not supposed to be here, so I will come back in 15 minutes. There's a whole rest of the class. You're just the first 20 minutes you do the survey, and then I'll be back. Okay? So if you know where you're going, fine. You only have to open the email if you need the link to the email. Okay?
What's the section number?
Yeah, what section?
Oh, you're section 9. It's the same on the server. Oh my name? It'll be.
What's your middle initial? Mother's maiden.
What's your average?
I just say it.
Yeah.
What's the name of your first
What is Kathy wear? The Dominican Republic on it and Stan Smith's.
I didn't get the email. He lied to me. Why did you send it to me?
A blue sweatshirt, a V-neck that's white, and sweat Adidas.
Where? What section are we? 9. I feel like I've already done it.
Why would you send around and
Brown and sticky. Diarrhea.
I told to Mr. McCann, like, actually cut or something, and then he said, he didn't laugh at it.
What section are we in? I try not to.
Okay, I don't know.
Who's happy?
What if we go? I'll take them.
Wait, why is it raining?
Today?
I know. I
feel like I'm gonna like.
I have 380.
It's like 3 emails we can't find them.
I say that, but I'm gonna just go back to my earlier hours. It's my homework. Yeah, no, you get it. He's doing medicine. Oh, is he doing that? Yeah. You guys are doing right. He's in your department. Together. Does he have a social life? Yes, he does.
What
do you see as the strength of the teacher's approach to teaching?
He lets you sleep in class.
Shut up!
I wouldn't talk about you specifically, Diane. God, I wasn't hard.
I did not sleep in class.
What's Dr. Smith's middle initial? You want to know? Is it Eric R. Smith? It's Eric R. Smith. Either R or J. I just have a
He has the same.
Is it R?
I don't know. It sounds right.
It's the same for emails that
I was a greater assignment so fast.
Wait, what? She said she'll look up the grades up tonight? She's like, sometimes today.
Oh yeah.
I was listening to some show too that I don't want to hear. Like,
We're basically evolved so much.
copy.
Good job, I'm so you don't assign anything.
What? Right now.
Oh.
$10.99. You can hit it from behind.
I was so annoyed. And I fell asleep
Wait,
halfway
what's the
through.
distance of it?
Good job.
How do I
Are you?
more activity?
Yeah. What is surveymonkey.com/r/17? Wait, there's an r/. Right. That works for what you know.
I'm the undid Sam.
He's gonna look at you.
I said it.
I said I think there should be at least 3 more essays for this class.
Whoa. How would we replace all the quizzes with essays? My sister's really doing it. She's really taking this class. Is she big? She's I wore a shirt one time. I'm a weird dude. Yeah.
You don't get the math program.
That's hot. Respect. That doesn't mean it's much.
For a math project, you just get the thing to assign actual.
So what do you This course is super challenging.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, these are anonymous.
I have.
Like, we're anonymous. I want to put this in like, I appreciate that.
No, not 4 plus 2. 6. Yeah. And they're so much like she's more afternoon. Yeah. Last semester I had second, 5th, 8th, 7th on Monday.
You want it? You got it? You applied for it?
I had 11 mods. Yeah. 11 mods?
Thank you. If anyone wants everything.
You're watching me.
Roughly 200. That's at least 200. Oh, Rebecca. Even with that. I know a lot of people. Are you here for me? Oh, copy, I love that game. Good job doing your service. Did you make me?
What if he comes in or like we're not doing the service?
I'm gonna be in China.
right now.
We do that for the entire.
That would be nice.
Where should I go?
Yeah, I feel sad. I was also sad.
I was very sad yesterday.
I was sad. I got rejected from a math camp, and that's why.
Okay, you got rejected before because you couldn't make
Yeah, okay, I'm talking about the project.
Oh, that
Yeah, I got rejected for that.
Sorry. Who else tried for the last
Can you eat it? How are you today? You had pizza, so it can't be all that. Pizza made you cool.
Wow, are you pre-ordering? Salmonosi, Aaliyah, canned soda. Wait, Rachel showed us the list.
Yeah.
Right back up to 9 round 1 prize. Now we're hey, do you want to race me?
I want siblings, period.
Yeah.
I wish I was young. Oh yeah, you have Washington. Very guinea pig.
That helps.
You don't want to go Washington.
What's your ED?
Wait, no, but if you ED, you have to. What if I like decide, oh, I take that will never happen in your life. Yeah, if you
You know how they have those recipe or how-to videos where they show all the stuff in the beginning? Like, it shows
you
a
don't know
picture.
what it is.
Like they show the picture of the object and the name of it. I want to do that, but I want to make the how-to completely unrelated and use completely different stuff. It's like, oh, you got that stuff? No, I just wanted. I just like pictures of those.
Oh, I was thinking like trick people, like show bowls of like blue Gatorade or something like that, and then put it in Windex.
No, that could turn into a legal matter.
Hey man, you could be like, oh, it was totally unrelated. Or just show the wrong name and put it in anyway. So like show a bowl of Gatorade and rate Windex, and then put it in and eat it and be like delicious. And then when people would be like, oh my god, how is she still alive? And you'd be like, oh, the heat makes the Windex edible or something.
and then
Oh.
I need to write this. Wait, you finished all of it? I'm on the second page.
I never needed to find the best. There's like a force equation. There's like two forces. It's like the net force. The two forces added is equal to that force. And subtract one of the forces to get weight. So it's not easy.
I feel like my comments don't even make any sense. It's like I won't like have this person prove your ability to also, let me just see how it
Maybe that's for the best game. Like, you should stop eating it all game. Something should make you better. Yeah, you escape. Hell yeah. Maybe you should have discovered that yourself.
Oh my god.
By listening to the
Strong acid versus.
Wow, I did so good in non-Catholic.
today.
For a strong
No,
weekend.
no, it was not even a lab. It was just like
The worksheet, the packet thing.
it's a packet thing that like it's for them. Yeah, white collector.
White collected everything.
She graded everyone. But she's still got that base problem.
I didn't miss Jack.
Most things are online except for this is the worksheet. She doesn't check those actually at all. Maybe white does.
Acapella?
The first three problems.
No, my birthday. Here, I can't there. What?
The whites are on
Yeah, you get a free order. That's good.
One, two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3.
I want to put Louis U4, but I don't think I can.
Oh my god.
inappropriate song for school.
Eden. Eden.
Yep.
What you up to?
Nothing. I see you on Facebook though.
What?
I see you're on Facebook.
I am not actually.
Oh, well, it says you are. Uh-oh.
I'm on Messenger.
That's the same thing.
It is not actually.
It's part of Facebook.
It's not.
It is. It's part of it. It
I
is.
disagree.
I don't want to do that.
Well, you're wrong.
You're too
Well, you're not
much of a
right.
friend to me.
Is everyone done?
No.
What?
No? I can't give you 5, but I can give you like 2 or 3. It actually shuts off at a certain point. So,
At 1:40.
I'll be back.
Soon you'll see.
Yeah, but I was looking at yeah, it's pretty easy. All you do is
Can you learn about the land bridge?
Huh?
Can we learn about the land bridge?
What land bridge? The one Alexander the Great made?
The old land.
Which one? What?
Have you ever been to the land bridge?
No.
Well, that sucks.
Wait, I moved it in my head.
This goose barked at me.
I just forgot to get
Mm,
You do math problem.
I can do 3 plus 4.
You do 5 plus 6.
11.
What?
11.
what? Not.
She.
Look the way it runs, it's really funny.
Upper track and field. Oh my god. That doesn't backline.
Okay, you really need to finish if you haven't, because it's going to be shutting off. You ready? Okay, good.
Those were anonymous, right?
Yes, they're anonymous. unless you write something in there that identifies you. I won't have any idea who it is. If you put stuff in there that says, Dr. Smith, you know who this is, then I'll know. Otherwise, no. What? It goes to the Office of Institutional Research. It goes to the principal's office, and it goes
What
to
if you write something really mean and write someone else's name on it?
I'm going to read it.
You said Amanda.
I should do
There's
that.
something you should know about it. I don't need to be doing them every semester. I only need to do them once a year. But ever since American Studies was turned into a one-semester course, which it has now for 4 semesters, I have been doing the surveys every single semester because I need to figure out like how to make this class work.
You done did it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. We didn't get to the end yet, which is the messiest part. Although what happened?
This is the message.
Well, I told you at the beginning of the semester. I think I have a solution to the problem. Although I've complicated my big exit from the of the semester by taking much longer. We're behind like 2 weeks.
Maybe we should just drop all the quiz grades.
Someone
solve the problem.
Let's not do that.
I'm going to talk a little bit more about. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the third paper at the end of the class today. But you know what? Just you know how like Brenda tracks down students. Well, she tracks down teachers too. We don't give her attendance. So yes, we all have the same terror.
Someone I can relate to.
Here. Jacqueline.
Here.
Eden. You're not sure you're here?
Wait, yeah, I didn't know.
Her spectral presence. October.
Here.
Amy.
Here, how many beers?
Sarita.
Here.
Thomas. Here. Catherine.
Here.
Eden.
Here.
Diane.
But what does it
Tommy,
mean?
Jessica.
Here.
Lucian.
Here.
Sohail.
Here.
Alexander. Here. Derek.
Here.
Colin. Here. Sybil.
Here.
Tanmay.
Here.
Amanda.
Yeah.
Eunice.
Here.
All right, excellent.
What are contemporary events? Yeah, I had no idea what that means.
Oh, answer that wrong.
Current events.
Oh, I did not have that question.
Oh, yeah.
That's my view. I said it helps me understand contemporary events by teaching me how to understand contemporary events.
Tautology. Always fall back on tautology. When in doubt.
Restate.
I did a few answers.
T-A-U-T. Yes, that's what that is.
Tautology is a good word. It's good.
I like the word bracket's a good word.
What? Bracket?
Yes. I would say bracket.
Okay. Obviously.
It's working? No.
It's like, if it's clear and obvious, you don't have to write it.
I will never have text wrong in real life.
Jacqueline. Maybe you're right about sending it.
Send it.
Okay. I told you that today I was going to upset the apple cart. So I have, to this point, I told you that the progressive era has seemed kind of straightforward. You know, here's this idea. It's about people bringing government into people's lives in ways that it had not been before. They see that as a positive, and they want to also. The other part of this story is that they're concerned about very wealthy people basically taking over the entire country, and they want to see what they can do to kind of take their country back, to use that term. One of Lincoln Steffens, who I'm going to talk about momentarily, Lincoln Steffens once wrote that the country has become of the people, by the rascals, for the rich. And he was very much the optimist who believed it should be of the people, by the people, for the people, and he wanted to see that actually happen. So I've told you this story already. But historians, looking at the evidence, because there's an incredible amount of stuff, in their selection, some of them will say, well, when I look at sort of the total of the evidence, it seems like the progressivism is kind of how you describe it, or how I would describe it. Another group comes along and says, well, yeah, but here's the thing. If you take this evidence over here, it actually looks like the progressive era isn't all that you've made it out to be. In fact, there's all kinds of other stuff going on, and that's what I want to talk about today. In your essay, which I'll talk to you about at the end of class, your last essay in this course, I'm going to put you into the place where you are going to make a case one way or the other of how you want to read that evidence. Okay, but let me talk about this other side. So this is the Teddy Roosevelt side. I've mentioned the 1912 election a couple times. It's a lot of blue.
All I see is gray.
Do you ever look at the little diagram and then you can't really make out what's in it? It turns out
No, it's all gray.
it's all gray. So, is that true or are you just joking?
What?
Yeah, he could be. Usually color blindness, though, isn't usually black and white. That's great. That's a particular kind. your eyes have different kinds of receptors, and one of them lets you see black and white. The other one is just like spectrum. Anyway, so
The only colors I can see are blue and red. And teal.
for a second I was thinking political centrist. No, can't see teal either. So anyway, I've mentioned this a couple times. You'll notice here, if you look here, Wilson is the Democratic candidate. I'll talk about it in a second. Roosevelt had already been president twice. He had taken over with McKinley's assassination, runs for re-election, and so he served almost 2 full terms. Now, there was no constitutional amendment at that time that said that you couldn't run a third time, right? But no one ever had. The convention was Washington only served 2 terms, and nobody should be so presumptuous as to try to serve a third one. And so no one ever did. Until Teddy came along. And he decides, he basically takes all of the progressives out of the Republican Party, forms his own party, and decides to run against Taft because he was so disappointed in his abilities after he hand chose him as his successor. He was sure he got behind him at the Republican convention in 1908, said, this is the guy, he's going to carry on my legacy, and then he gets there and he's a complete disaster. So, yeah, same guy. So, Roosevelt decided to run against him in 1912 with his own party. By pulling out the Republicans from the Republican Party, though, he's done 2 things. One, he's consigned the Republicans to third-party status in the 1912 election. He's also, if he could have run as a Republican, would have had enough votes to actually be president. But here's the other thing. Woodrow Wilson, historians like him because he was a PhD in history and a president of Princeton University, and so he's the only historian that ever be president. But he also had a progressive streak because I told you the progressives were in both parties. The Democrats have their own progressivism, and Wilson, in many ways, is an easy choice for people. They're like, well, we've had Republicans for a decade, kind of tired of them, and now we have Wilson.
So he wasn't like a Southern Democrat?
No, not at all. I would say Wilson, if he were to run, if he were alive today and he could run, he would not stand a chance of winning. He was just too incredibly boring, and we don't like boring presidents.
Oh,
we
yeah.
we like them to be as dynamic as possible. You can say a lot of things about Wilson, but you cannot say that he was dynamic. He will run for the election in 1916 on a platform of with the catch line, he kept us out of war. Because the World War II breaks out in 1914, at which point he's reelected and plunges the country into war.
Which one's the one that got stuck in the back?
Yeah. That was fake. He didn't actually. How big was
Wait,
it?
what?
Yes, it's a question of how
And
small
it
is it.
wasn't real, right? It was like fake propaganda.
I actually don't know that story very well. The students tell me about it all the time. I looked it up once and said, oh, okay, I guess there was an athlete involved. And left it at that. I don't really.
He got hurt coming out of his bathroom. I was trying to take him out.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Here's one.
What made Wilson so boring? Was he just like
No,
He was with all
there isn't radio yet. This is kind of the end. By the 1920s, the age of radio is going to change. You know how people are experiencing elections. Well, that's the 1930s. So this era without this mass communication is still upon us at this point, and so there's still this kind of old-fashioned campaigning, and you really need to go, and you need to be seen, and you need people to come to your events. They're getting there a lot faster because the trains are back. But this break is a really big deal. Wilson is going to usher in this era of the Democrats through the course of the 1910s, and then in 1920,
Did the Titanic have anything political?
The Titanic is interesting for two reasons. One was one of the wealthiest families in America, the Astor family. They were on board that ship. Not all of them, but like the older children and the important ones. Right? Yeah, not the railroads. The other reason, though, is that the Titanic itself symbolized this kind of spirit of, oh, we can build something this big, and it would be the largest ship ever, and then there are all kinds of issues with the decisions that went into putting the. It turns out that it was an aesthetic decision not to put all of the lifeboats on. The engineers did, in fact, build the ship to hold all of the lifeboats. It wasn't the engineers' fault. It was the company that didn't want to block the view from the deck looking out over the ocean who decided not to put the second row of boats in. What's that? Yeah, right? So, now going back to where I was before, when I talked to you about the Omaha platform. This was, remember, this is the populists. The populists bring together the ideas of the Grange movement, the Farmers Alliance. They form their party. They're eventually going to fuse with the Democrats. But it's the Republicans that, it's Roosevelt and the Republicans in this late 1890s, not early 1900s, who are ultimately going to be, not, if not wholly responsible, at least greatly responsible for a lot of these achievements. Only two of these are not fully realized. This one, historians say, is irrelevant anyway, and this one was done at a private level, co-ops and so on. So all of these these actually come through legislation. Direct popular election of senators, act by constitutional amendment. Initiatives and referendums. We don't have those so much in Illinois, but California is all about referendums and initiatives. I was going to ask you that question. Anyone know?
Yes,
So this is direct democracy. Rather than having your representative make a decision, certain items with enough signatures can be put directly onto the ballot, and the voters vote directly whether or not they're going to do something. Most of the stuff that we get in Illinois is like advisory. So, for instance, the election, I always found it was fascinating. There were 3 statewide questions on the ballot when Governor Rauner was elected. Okay, one of them was, do you think that we should increase the minimum wage? 2/3 of the population in Illinois said yes, we should increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour. What's that?
They were all in Springfield and Chicago.
Well, I don't know. Does Springfield or Chicago come for 2/3 of the population?
I mean, they turned Illinois blue. I mean, Illinois was all red until Springfield and Chicago put their votes in, and then it turned blue first. During the presidential election.
I know. If we just get rid of Chicago, the whole state will just be able to stand on its own 2 feet. So one of them was minimum wage. So 2/3 of the population says yes. Who do you want as your senator? Statewide, again, they re-elect Dick Durbin. And so both of these things we could say are Democratic things, right? But then who do you want for governor statewide? Browner, right, who barely wins. So some of the same people were saying, yes, we want a minimum wage increase. Voted for a guy who said, I don't believe in minimum wages. Right. Now that's interesting. But the part about the minimum wage, it was advisory. It doesn't say we're going to adopt a minimum wage. If it was a referendum, it would have said, yes, if this passes, we will adopt an increase in the minimum wage. That's what a referendum does. So it bypasses the legislature and goes directly to people. California uses this all the time. Lots of people find California to be ungovernable. It's a mix of all these kind of so much direct democracy and then all kinds of rules on how you do things in the legislature. California's crazy. So you have you have this. You get another amendment, the 16th, the graduate income tax. They don't entirely get this, but they get heavy regulations, and then they get the public utilities actually becoming publicly owned monopolies. They get that too. And they also get, eventually, it's going to take a while, they're going to get the 8-hour day. That's going to come. So all of these things are realized, and they begin in 1892. So all this is, again, this is looking like progress. But here's where we start to digress. Tell me about the 18th and 19th.
Prohibition.
So the 18th Amendment is prohibition. The 19th Amendment is the women's right to vote. It turns out the two of them are actually linked. Okay. On the board there, WCTU. WCTU, and you're like, wait, isn't that a radio station? No. WCTU is the Women's Christian Temperance Union. What's temperance? Hold on. What? Okay, temperance means no alcohol. The Women's Christian Temperance Union, I'm going to give you 2 facts about them, and then you can tell me what this might mean. Fact number 1, the WCTU was obviously pushing for prohibition, the 18th Amendment. Actually, it's 3 facts. Here's fact number 2. It's the Women's Christian Temperance Union, so we're looking at women actually pushing. Here's the 3rd fact. The WCTU was centered in Chicago. This is together. Was centered in Chicago and owned the tallest building in the world. Seriously? No, the WCTU building was, at the time it was built, the world's tallest building. It was the Willis Tower of its time.
Is it taller than the Empire State?
It doesn't, no, that's much later. That's the 1920s. But the WCTU building, which isn't there anymore because it was knocked down.
Oh.
Yes, you know. No, I wish I could say it was a fire. No, it was just that they sold off the building, and the next owner said, well, I'm going to knock it down and put it something bigger. They did. They're thinking about doing the same thing with the State of Illinois building, the Thompson Center downtown. It's not that old that they're going to knock it down and put up something else.
Where it was, is this fact?
So here are the facts.
It's a woman.
It's women's, run by women. They push for the 18th Amendment. They're also the owner, and they're based in Chicago, and they're the owner of the world's biggest building at that time.
How did they own it? They buy it or they build it?
It belonged to them, to the organization.
Did they like buy it?
Well, this is what I'm asking you. What do you suppose it means if I tell you that they actually owned the building?
They were rich.
They had it built.
So they were wealthy.
Yes.
So they could do anything they wanted.
No. So you have these women who are in a very well-funded organization. Most of these women are society women. They're like upper class from the North Shore of Chicago suburbs. Their husbands are, you know, the power brokers, the wealthy guys in Chicago. They have all this time on their hands. They want to do something constructive, and what are they going to do? They're going to push for prohibition. While they're at it, though, they're like, hey, you should give women the vote. So they're doing both. They're doing both. Now, here's the thing. Is prohibition a progressive idea?
No,
I mean, does it fit with the other stuff? No, only in the sense that people are like, well, we want the government to do stuff and we think it will correct society's ills, but it turns out to be like a really bad idea.
The worst.
Yeah.
Why is the 18th Amendment still like part of the Constitution if it's like not?
Yeah, but lots of things, like for instance, the Three-Fifths Compromise is still in the Constitution, but it also is no longer in effect. So if you know that Senate website with the Constitution, they actually show you the parts that are no longer in effect because of amendments.
They can't command
Control.
Control.
command.
So I need to get the train back on the tracks. So so you have these very well-connected women who are pushing for something that's not very progressive at all. Here's another thing that the progressives, that's what I should say is happening during the progressive era. How many of you have, where your family lives, have a park nearby?
Literally right across the street.
Within a half mile?
It's like 300 feet.
Within 40
Okay,
feet.
like every hand should be up. One of the reasons we have public green space.
Woman Christian.
No. Yes. One of the reasons we have public green space is because there were two groups of people who were very interested in public green space. One group of people, for example.
Conservation.
No. Well, there might be conservationists who are interested, but I'm talking about in the cities. One of the reasons we have the green space is because poor people said, hey, all of the wealthy areas of the city have these green spaces and they have parks and we would like to have them too. The problem is they're poor. And everyone's like, you're poor, we don't care. This is the fact of our political system. But here's the thing. A bunch of those wealthier people who have the parks in their neighborhoods got the idea that here's a problem. If these people don't have parks, they're going to be coming and using our parks. So if we build them parks, then they'll have their own, they'll stay out of ours, and the police can keep an eye on them. So they're going to achieve something. Both groups have completely different motivations. Completely opposite motivations. But they want the same thing.
Green space.
Green space. And they're and so the wealthy and the poor are both like, yes, okay, here's your green space. Now we can keep an eye on you and keep you out of our parks. So they're going to achieve it. Again, is that a progressive idea? Well, it starts off that way, like from one perspective, and then you're like, wait a minute, that's off in this week. And here's the other part. In your volume 3 of your book, actually there are 2 parts. Volume 3 of your book, in part 5, I'm just going to point. We're not going to read your document. I'm just going to point it out to you. Okay, so that it's there for your reference. But if you go to part 5, first document in there is Lincoln Steffens. I mentioned Lincoln Steffens in some of the class. He's the one that talks about how people buy the rascals. Steffens writes a very famous book here called Human Cities. He did something really interesting in that book. He did this analysis, and he was, as I said, he's a true believer in progressivism. He embraces the term. He sees himself as pushing for positive change. He does a comparison of 4 different cities. 2 of those are kind of interesting. One of them is St. Louis. Any of you from downstate? St. Louis area? Yeah. So he does this analysis of St. Louis, and then he does this other analysis of Chicago. And as we all know, Chicago, of course, it thinks it's the most awesome city in the world, and which is why everyone else calls it the Windy City, because it's cool with the hot air. And no, that's not a joke. That's how it got the term. No, it came from boosterism when they were trying to get the World's Fair in 1893, and everyone's like, yes, the Windy City. Because all the bluster and hot air that was coming out of Chicago about why they should have it, because New York was sure that they should have it. They didn't get it.
Why does Chicago promote it so much? It's like
So here's the comparison between Chicago and St. Louis. Steffens says, look, we have all this corruption in our era, and here is this model city where corruption has been cleaned up. Oh, yeah, I was just going to ask you what city you were talking about.
Chicago. They're trying to say it for that.
And then Steffens contrasts it with this city that he says, look at all of this corruption. Geez, you know, why can't they be more like the other city?
They're saying that about St. Louis. They're like reverse
So
psychology.
Steffens is describing how terrible St. Louis is. And he's like, wow, Chicago is a model. The whole country should be like Chicago in terms of cleaning up its corruption. And you read it today and you're like, wow, how the times have changed. It's like, why can't Chicago be more like St. Louis? But that was. So he does this comparison and he says, like, we're trying to clean up the corruption. But what that means is, look, if the progressives think that they're going to get rid of corruption, it doesn't entirely work, does it? In fact, if you read document number 2 by George Washington Plunkett, again, I'm pointing this out to you, Plunkett does sound like it's something out of literature, right? It's like, God, who comes up with a name like that? Really?
Yeah.
But it turns out it's a real name. I wonder if Jesse is related to this.
What's his middle name?
Jake.
No.
George Washington Plunkett says, yes, there's corruption. You know what? Corruption is good. And here are all the reasons that corruption is good. And I'm going to lay it out for you so all of you people who think, all you good government types, they actually had a phrase for it. Good government types were referred to as goobers. Good government, goobers. Who needs you? Goobers. Graft is good. Taking a little here and there, this is what makes America great. This is what makes our country good. This is why our cities are so well functioning. Well, again, yes, that's what this guy argues. Again, if you decide to go that route in your paper,
His last name's Plunkett.
it's all you need to know. Who would not trust a guy named
What's like an example? This is just one example.
Let me finish. We have to find it. The other thing is the regulatory agencies, like for instance the Interstate Commerce Commission. You'll also find in here that they have some congressional hearings and they try to make some changes. You have one of the heads of the railroads. He's absolutely terrified of more regulations. It's really bothersome. From one perspective, these historians would say, yes, but not only is there plenty of corruption, so the progressives totally fail, but the other part is all these wealthy people who are supposed to, create a new aristocracy, and everyone is worried about what they're going to do to the fabric of the nation. All they did was appoint their people to the very agencies that were supposed to be regulating them. So what good does that do? All they've done is capture the new agencies. Oh, you don't like your sausage factory being investigated by the FDA? Get one of your people to be on the FDA, and then you don't have to worry about being investigated. Oh, and by the way, since all of this is going on, you know why women get the vote? Because the vote doesn't mean anything anymore. Therefore, it's easy to get women to vote, right? That's one of the readings. Other people would say, though, and this is the more optimistic perspective, the reason women get the vote
It's because they're equal?
that women would change the political culture. If you give the vote to them, all this corruption will go away. The progressives are happy because they're winning the vote. They're sure that women are more moral and that everything will be cleaned up once they have the ability to vote. Well, you know what happens? In the 1920s, the women start voting exactly like their husbands. Women get the right to vote, and then they vote just like their husbands, so in fact, it doesn't actually clean up anything. Now, that's not as true now, but it was true then. the women's vote, as it's referred to, does deviate from the male vote now in ways that it did not in the 1920s, right? When we entered. So, what I've set up for you here is that, okay, here are all these achievements, but there are a number of people who would say, well, yes, okay, there are some achievements, and it depends on where you look and whether or not they're achievements. Historians will ask the question, so in the final analysis, do we read the progressive era as really positive change, or it doesn't really change anything? And some of it is obviously, what are your sources? What are you looking at? You could also say, well, actually, it's a little mix of both. The vast majority of the material is heading in the kind of positive direction, which is, I guess, favors kind of the direction I've been taking. But by no means is it the final word. And there are a number of people who would be very critical, actually both from the political right and political left, political right, who will both say that the progressives actually are not all they're cracked up to be. So, on your essay, which is coming up here relatively rapidly, which, yes, but I'm going to give you time in class. We are going to talk about this a bit more, okay? So, for tomorrow, I want you to think about, you actually have to brainstorm on how you're going to approach this. Because tomorrow, when you come in, you need to know, one, which direction you might take, and be thinking about how you might construct your argument, and be prepared to ask me questions, because if you haven't thought about it, then you're going to be completely lost. That's your homework tonight, and then tomorrow you're actually going to start advancing the paper already tomorrow. Okay? I don't usually give you class time for these things, but we can do it tomorrow. All right?
Does that look like the state of Omaha?
The state of Omaha?
I think the state of Omaha is a constant state of fear and misery.
Okay, so that's your homework for tonight. When I see you tomorrow, we will talk a little bit more about it. Yes.
And my
Oh,
closet
for
gets
you
crammed out and
then,
stuffed into a
you definitely need to
shapes, surrounded by the
make sure that you are in touch
can't
with
trust
me
myself
about
around.